This is Charlie Kao with TravelMole TV in Madrid, Spain at the World Travel and Tourism Council Summit with John O'Sullivan, Tourism Australia's new CEO. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Charles. How are you?
Very excellent.
Very
Pleasure.
excellent. That's great to
Well,
hear.
very excellently jet lagged.
No, I can attest to that.
And really great to meet the new CEO of one of the greatest tourism organizations in the world, as we were talking about. So you have your job cut out for you, so to speak.
Oh, thank you. No, it's a great organisation, Tourism Australia. My predecessor, Andrew McAvoy, left the business in fantastic shape. He'd been CEO for about 4 years, but with the organisation for much longer than that. And the great thing about our organisation is the product that we sell, which is Australia, one of the most beautiful, if not the most beautiful countries here on earth, and also the people that inhabit it, who are very friendly, very welcoming people as well. And the team at Tourism Australia, just over 220 full-time staff working in 12 offices around the world, plus our head office in Australia, do a fantastic job in promoting what's a fantastic country.
And what are the latest things you're working on right now?
Our big emphasis at the moment is on food and wine tourism. We know that the world is now travelling on its stomach, and what we also know through our research is that people who've been to Australia rank our food and wine offering as good as anywhere else in the world. So we're trying to exploit that more aggressively, and particularly appealing to those people who haven't been to Australia before, who don't necessarily see our food and wine offering as good as countries such as France or Italy, or indeed destinations as we're here today in Spain. So our big focus is on food and wine. We're also heavily involved in attracting more and more investment into Australia, whether that be new hotel rooms, whether that be more airline seats or new airlines servicing new routes. And then in addition to that, we're also heavily involved in our digital push. So our focus is really digitally led, very heavily on social media, but also our traditional digital media assets such as Australia.com as well.
How many friends on Facebook currently?
We have over 6 million. We are the leading national tourism organisation in the world. We have approximately 200,000 friends on Twitter. And then our YouTube channels will have somewhat upwards of 20 million people a year viewing the content on it.
Speaking of air carrier lift, how much of that has come in recent years from these big Middle Eastern carriers, and going forward, how much are they going to contribute to it? Well,
certainly what we've seen over the last 3 to 4 years in Australia is an explosion out of two regions in particular, one being the Middle East in airline seats, serviced predominantly by Emirates, but now also Etihad Airways, who have thrown a lot more capacity, and from June 1 will be using their new A380 services into Sydney, as well as the Chinese carriers as well. So we've seen from both of those regions market in uplift and increase in the number of seats, the types of aircraft. I mean, you can fly daily from Dubai into Sydney now 4 times. You can fly into Melbourne 3 times, into Perth 3 times daily. So there are a lot of capacity coming into the country from those two regions particularly.
China is now represents 20%. I'm just tossing out a number of tourism. I mean, it's growing constantly.
It is growing. The China market is our second largest market in terms of numbers, just on 798,000 Chinese visitors to September 2014 visited our country. And that's out of a total of about 7.8 million people who came to Australia from internationally. So it's about a 10% share. But importantly, they're the most prolific spenders. So they spend about $5.4 billion each year out of about a $30 billion spend by international visitors. So they're certainly punching above their weight in terms of spend.
Climate change. I mean, reading The Economist's latest issue was talking about some of the problems with the corals in the Great Barrier Reef. That's known problem for some time. Looking forward, what's the best possibility for all of this?
When you look at the Great Barrier Reef, it's one of our natural assets. if you look at
the
way
world.
in the world, the way we market our country and the way that Australia is seen as a destination is seen as a naturally beauty country. You know, our job is not to analyse issues such as climate change or any other associated issues. Our job is to promote the country, and we will be partnering with Sir David Attenborough on a new documentary which will be released early next year on the Great Barrier Reef, which will talk about, you know, just what a wonder and of nature this natural wonder is, but also talk about some of the challenges that are involved and that the reef faces. But the overarching theme out of this documentary will be that it's such a resilient piece of our country and such a beautiful part of our country that it's such a great thing to promote the country on the back of.
The Indigenous people in Australia, it seems like it's in the last decade it's received some media attention and global attention, and I presume tourists are interested in what they're about, where they live and things.
Yeah, we have the oldest living Indigenous culture in Australia, and they are a very important part of our tourism offering, particularly for our Western markets out of the United States and North America, out of continental Europe, and also the United Kingdom. Tourism Australia partners now with 50 businesses who are called Indigenous Champions, and these are Indigenous tourism-based businesses that are now export ready, so they are able to take their product internationally. There's another 20 that we're working with to bring them up to the same level, and Indigenous tourism is a very important part of our offering, both for domestic tourists but also importantly for international tourists. And as our Asian visitors become more associated with the country, we expect that they too will start to see great interest in the Indigenous culture of our country.
I presume that over the last decade, the percentage of tourists that tour operators and travel agents generate to Australia decreases as the consumers go more to the internet. How are they kind of reinventing themselves, so to speak, to remain relevant?
I think it's a really interesting question. If you look in, and it's very much a market-by-market led question, if you go into markets such as Germany, such as Japan, the travel agent plays the key role in determining where people go within Australia, what they'll do, and how they get there. The travel agent is still very, very important in a number of our key markets, and the reason being is that they provide that level of surety that sits behind a long-haul trip. In markets such as Singapore, what we're finding increasingly is that the independent traveller is picking out where they want to go through their digital assets, and then taking that to their travel agent and asking them to book particular parts of their itinerary, whilst then also doing those lower risk side of their itinerary directly themselves, such as their flights. So it's very much changing. It's market by market led. But the travel agent will remain a key part of our...
well, United States. Who is number one market, by the way? Chinese is now number two?
In spend, it's China. In number of visitors, it's New Zealand.
Yeah, of course. Okay. Well, in the U.S., it appears the tour operators are still quite strong with their offerings. But you also see a lot of people, buy an air ticket and Airbnb and...
Certainly, we're living in a very disruptive time. I mean, as the theme of this conference is about disruption, and we're seeing that people more and more will take recommendations, not from a travel agent, but from their people that they trust. They'll go and look for their best deals through aggregators such as Skyscanner. They'll look at tools such as Uber. They'll look at tools such as Airbnb to look at their accommodation and how they get around. But ultimately, at the end of the day, though, there are a large proportion of travellers that will, because of the distance to Australia, because of the cost of coming to Australia, will always look towards a travel agent because of the surety that they provide and the underpinning comfort that they can provide if something goes wrong. So I think we're definitely in an age of disruption, but we're also seeing that the large component of our market still relies on those traditional distribution channels.
John O'Sullivan, CEO of Tourism Australia, thank you very much.
Thanks, Charles. Great to meet you.
Likewise.